A brief history.
To understand the history of transaction cost theory, one must first understand some of the basic assumptions of the economic thinking of the time. In the late 1930s and early 1940s, classical economics had three basic assumptions. 1. Markets are efficient, in other words, those who could produce the goods most cheaply were doing so. 2. A firm or person will maximize a benefit while minimizing costs, called rational or economic man. And 3. Decisions were made with a perfect knowledge of the markets. Everything that one needed to know in order to make the optimal decision was known. Ronald Coase, a British-born and educated economist, had a problem with market efficiency. If markets are efficient, and the market is made of individuals who all contracted with each other, why do firms exist? He first asked this question Indiana 19371 in his essay, The Nature of the Firm. As a result of his research, Coase determined that transacting in the market cost more than the simple price of the good or service. Costs were created when finding a trading partner, sharing and gathering information, and bargaining. Therefore, by Coase's reasoning, firms arise when it becomes cheaper to create services or goods internally and to avoid these transaction costs. The introduction of inefficient markets was a significant change to classical economic theory, and although Coase could not provide specifics as to what exactly the transaction costs were, the first step had been taken, that is, the transaction cost paradigm was born. In the late 1950s, Herbert Simon, sociologist, psychologist, political scientist, and economist, was ready to turn economic theory on its head again. As a behavioral scientist, Simon theorized that rational man does not exist, and that most decisions are based on satisfying or basing a decision on criteria that will satisfy the need, rather than optimize it. 2. Simon is also thought to have introduced bounded rationality, which is the idea that one's choices are limited by the processing capability of the human brain, the limitedness of information the human brain can store, and the amount of time one has to make the decision. Simon, along with his colleagues, Richard Syard and James March, at the Carnegie School, had a profound influence on others in the economics department. Later referred to as freshwater economics, this new approach to macroeconomics stressed the dynamic and quantitative aspects of economic decision-making. The Carnegie experience was one that emphasized cross-discipline study, and Oliver Williamson, a doctoral student, took full advantage of the latest developments in behavioral theory, game theory, and organization theory, as he studied economics. 3. In the early 1960s, Williamson, a doctoral student at Carnegie Mellon, was asking the same types of questions Coase had posed 30 years earlier, but found that classical economics provided no satisfactory answers. As part of the training at Carnegie, Williamson, and all doctoral students, was encouraged to pursue interdisciplinary answers to questions. Although Williamson did not doubt that market costs were important to the answers, his cross-discipline training had him considering behavioral aspects as well as purely economic ones. As Williamson states, what was especially distinctive about Carnegie is the way that it combined organization theory with the contiguous social sciences. My understanding of and approach to the study of economic organization underwent a vast and permanent change in the process. 4. Thus, it was that bounded rationality and opportunistic behavior were introduced into Williamson's theory. The later additions of other behavioral aspects of organization and decision-making theories, such as Syard and March's work on Search 5, sociology, trust, and game theory, conflict of interest, research rounded out the change from paradigm to theory TCE. Since the 1970s, when Williamson first introduced the basic and, at the time, incomplete tenets of TCE in his book Markets and Hierarchies, 6 many theoretical and empirical studies have shown the strength and robustness of the theory as well as its practical applications ranging from government to non-profit. From large auto manufacturers to small family-owned businesses, from California to Hong Kong,